the big calls on all the big races. Welcome back to another weekend edition of What a Shout, the Racing Post flagship feature weekend show, filmed by Dave Orton, brought to you by our sponsors Bet365. Thrilled to be with you on a Thursday. What a big weekend we have. 2-day meeting at Newbury to go through, of course, some big racing again in Ireland, all coming your way. What a busy week it has been in racing. We will be digesting it all for you and, of course, getting the tips out the window straight away. Right, don't forget, like and subscribe. That's what it's all about. Do that by a thumbs up on YouTube. Anything on Facebook, say hello. And Twitter, hashtag What a Shout. OK, who joins me? We had some panel last week, didn't we? It was all in-house space. The owner, Jed Mason, before the big double came in. And I'm thrilled to say we love to get Parky back in every now and then. And our Weeklies editor, that's what we call you, isn't it? The Weeklies editor.
Yeah, you can call me what you like, Dave.
Well, don't worry, off air, it's happening, mate. Don't worry. You should hear your name is Mud in the office. But you run basically our beloved sister paper, don't you? The Weekender, which, of course, you got all the big name with, and more prominently, I think, recently, Tom. This is your time of year, isn't it? Because you've just edited The Big Jump Off.
Yeah, it was really happy with The Big Jump Off. It's always good fun.
Must have been the intermediate chase division which lit you up, of course.
You can't. Some writers you've just got to put up with. But
quite right. He's talking about.
The Big Jump Off. I love this time of year. It's just getting going. I was at Cheltenham the other week. It was fantastic.
For the Paddy Power meeting?
Yeah, the Paddy Power meeting. And it just, I know we've got our gripes with the field sizes and stuff, but I just think these big handicap chases this time of year, fantastic. Hennessy, perhaps not what it was.
Coral Gold Cup, Tom. It's on
the Coral Gold Cup. I know.
People are still calling it the Benson and Hedges.
I know, I'll be calling, yeah. But yeah, really good race this year. I do fancy one quite a lot.
Oh yes, I know what that is as well.
I know, yeah.
And we haven't spoken about that. You've got you are a punter. Just before we go to Pat Cooney up in Stoke, you are one that still likes to try and find some anti-post value, aren't you?
Yeah, very much so.
This is the week, mate.
The jumps.
Yeah.
I'm on one, so I'm quietly confident.
I'll tell you someone who's always on one, and that's Pat Cooney up in Stoke, who was at Haydock, I believe, last weekend, seeing Aplutard flop, but also Hitman score. And after we had owner Jed Mason come into the studio with us, Pat, it's fair to say you were rubbing shoulders again and hobnobbing.
Yes, I was keeping myself in good company for a change. Yes, Jed was there, and Sir Alex Ferguson as well. So, it was chaotic scenes after Hitman won, and even more so after Protectorate for Jed. But, it was. They know how to enjoy themselves when they win, lose or draw in this game.
Yes, of course. Protectorate. It was a great story, wasn't it, Tom? At least Sir Alex was there because, of course, the public, all the multis on Saturday were all, after Constitution came out and Edwardstone, everyone had put Aplutard in their multis, and he absolutely... dreadful run, really, wasn't it? I'm not even really sure. I've seen too many postscripts bar the ground, and we'll get to that in a minute. But great to see Sir Alex there. A nice crossover, isn't it, for our sport?
Oh, yeah, brilliant. And obviously two big winners for their team. Protectorate was superb. One of the jumps that he put in, he took about 3 lengths out the rest of the field, jumping down the back.
A worthy winner despite the flop, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. He looked an improved horse. I mean, it's hard to weigh up when the favourites kind of bombed out. I know Bristol Demise getting on in age, so we'll look back at that. Whether we look back at that race and question the form, I think it'll be.
He made a wonderful sight though, didn't he? It was great to see him.
His jumping in particular, absolutely superb.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really good performance.
There was also another Jed Mason horse, wasn't there? And I'm saying it with a bit of a smile because we've been bashing Keels for putting up Hitman since the Big Jump Off, of course, which was one of his tips in that, for the King George. Graham Rodway joined us on the shows. Rodders couldn't have him at all. You, however, are sitting rather pretty, and you think he's got a right old chance.
Yeah, I like him. That was a really good... What I liked about his performance last week, they changed the tactics, they raced him out in front. He's had question marks about him in the finish in the past. The Old Roan Chase... I backed him that day. I thought he maybe did it again, but in hindsight, I think it was probably a good race. He was given a lot of weight to some decent horses, and I was happy to forgive him. The weekend, got him out in front. What a brilliant jumping performance
was it because he got out in front? That's now what everyone's saying.
Possibly. I mean,
that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
He got a soft lead up
in
front, and I don't think the opposition would have had a chance of beating him anyway, but they didn't really give themselves a chance. That said, I don't think there's an awful lot between him and Braveman's game. I mean, if you look at Braveman's game's form in the past, I think it's a little bit questionable. Brilliant jumper, spectacular to watch.
What did he start the season as for it? He probably would have been any price, wouldn't he?
Who, Hitman?
Yeah.
I think he was about 25 to 1.
Let's go to Pat and find out exactly what he is now. And you spoke to Paul Nicholls about perhaps what is there between Braveman's game and Hitman?
Well, speaking to Paul Nicholls, I would say before the race, never mind afterwards, he was very keen about Kempton, and he said he wouldn't be that far behind Braveman's game. Now, with Hitman, the plan wasn't to make the running on Saturday, but they opted to keep it simple with just the 3 rivals. So he jumped out in front, and I think they felt he was idling a bit. So you can even mark him up as being even better than that performance, really. But it's going to be fascinating in the King George, isn't it? Braveman's game, Hitman will go, Feilden will go. So you got 3 excellent jumpers, all from the same stable. Now, what else is going to turn up? I don't know. Tornado Flyer, I would imagine, will turn up. I don't think Galopin de Champ is going to run. So it might be one of these 7-runner races, and Paul Nicholls is going to have 3 of them.
I think it's looking that way, isn't it? What do you reckon out there? Is Parky balmy like Kills, or are they onto something? Let us know below. Right, here's what we've got coming up on the rest of the show for you. Delighted to say top Grand National winning trainer, Grade 1 winning trainer, Lucinda Russell joins us from Kelso, talking about Corach Rambler, of course, in the big one on Saturday, and also what's coming up for the rest of the yard beyond that. We'll be looking at all the big race previews, 2 on Friday. Yes, we're feeling festive already. And then we'll be giving you a couple of the Pearlers on Saturday as well. It's Newcastle and Newbury to shine. Well, absolutely thrilled to say we got to the borders now, Kelso, because we've been trying to track Grand National Grade 1 winning trainer, Lucinda Russell, around the country, but she finally returns to the Watershout shores. Lucinda, great to have you on.
It's great to be here, and here I am in the camper van, the infamous camper van.
We've usually got Scoo dotted around the place. I don't want to imagine where he could be right now, but you've even got your dog in there as well.
We've got 3 dogs, but not all just now. But yeah, no, that's one of the reasons we take the camper van with us.
Oh, isn't that great? So look, lovely behind the scenes. And Lucinda even pulled the blinds down for us as well. You're a pro at these water shouts now. Now, Lucinda, a big weekend comes up. Yeah, it's been a fair time for you as well, hasn't it, of late, actually? Not too bad. I think you've got 22 winners on the board so far this season. The right horses are tending to run their races, aren't they, which is always what you want to see. But here he comes back, last season's Ultima winner, Corach Rambler, who looks set to go off, if not favourite, certainly very well fancied by a lot of punters in the Cheltenham Gold Cup on Saturday.
Yeah, you know, we love having winners. It's really important, but it's really, really important to us to have these big winners. And my goodness, we've just aimed for one of the biggest handicaps of the season. I'm excited to be there. You know, the horse is in great form. We scoped him the other day, and all his tests and veterinary tests say that he's in good form. He'll have come on a lot for that run at Carlisle, which, as anyone that knows racing will have spotted, was only over 2.5 miles when he really is a 3-miler. So I think we've aimed for this race, and with luck, he'll run very well at it.
Yes, that was in the Colin Parker, of course, at Carlisle, a race you've targeted before for comebacks. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Well, that's all we wanted to know. He's fit and he's well. Let's talk about the conditions then. 16, if they all turn up, going to post. It looks like it's going to be another drying weekend for us. Let's not go there, Lucinda. Too much said about that already. We just want to concentrate on what might win this race now. He won his point-to-point on good ground. He's won for you on good ground at Aintree as well, hasn't he? So no problems there.
Well, I hope not. Keith Austin very kindly spoke to me about the course, and everyone is aware of the problems that we've had through the summer with the drying ground. He's putting lots of water on, trying to get it as best as he can. If it's safe, it's fine, and I think that's the main thing. We trainers, all we care about is the welfare of our horses. So as long as the ground's safe, as you say, he has got form on good ground. He'll have run on quite quick ground this last spring, this spring. The important is there has to be moisture well down through the ground, and it'll be the same for everyone. We're actually going down to check the track on Friday. That's one of the reasons I'm in the camper van. We're already on our way to Newbury, and we'll just make sure that it's safe for him. And if it's safe for him, he'll definitely run. And as you say, not too worried about the ground. It's a big field. Obviously, second season novices often do very well in the race because they're probably still on the way up. And He's got plenty of experience in big fields and seems to enjoy them.
Well, absolutely. We saw that very much at Cheltenham, didn't we, where we carted Derek into the race. And is he that sort of horse, Lucinda, that takes just that little bit of time? Like one of our favourite ever national winners, of course. The comparisons with One for Arthur do seem to be coming his way. I'm sure they're very different horses, but obviously stays all day. He comes, under a waiting ride. When do you sense as a trainer, OK, he's on a going day?
Yeah, he's a remarkable horse, Corach. If you see him at home, and I know I've said before about Skoo riding him and they're both as quirky as each other. The thing about him is that he, you can watch him go around the fields at home and he'll be doing absolutely nothing. And that's what he's like in a race. He'll be cantering along at the back. It looks like he's never jumped a fence before. He'll jump big at the fences and he'll canter along there and be looking at the ambulances going beside the other runners. And then suddenly he locks on. And he's exactly the same at home. He suddenly locks on and he'll take off. And I think that's exactly what he did at Cheltenham. And, Derek's great because he doesn't hassle him. He doesn't rush him out of his own rhythm and just lets him do his own thing, lets him think that he's in charge. But it seems to have worked up till now, so hopefully it'll continue to.
So you can basically go and have a coffee or wherever it is you go and then make sure you get back for the cross fence, which is 5 out, of course, and you might be hopefully cheering him down. We will be for you, Lucinda. He's got a real public following, like a lot of your winners on the big Saturdays, of course. All the best with him. Of course, Ahoy Senior, after he came back in the Charlie Hall, which was a little bit more lacklustre than some people might have envisaged. Of course, we remember what happened after he came back at Carlisle in the same race he used for Colin Parker last year, and he just absolutely took off after that. How is he? We thought he might be coming to this race as well. Is it King Georgie, are we looking, or?
No, he's got to go to Aintree. We shouldn't try and make these horses turn into sort of people or anything, but he really was. He was just like a kid. He was just being an idiot last time at Wetherby. He was quite hassled. I don't think it was totally his own fault, but I think they hassled him up in front. He didn't enjoy that. Then he just started rushing. Then he lost his confidence. But I think looking forward, we're going to go to Aintree. It's a slightly smaller field, or hopefully will be a slightly smaller field. And I think that'll suit him better and just try and get his confidence back, really. But he's a tremendous horse. He's very, very strong. And actually, after that race, he was very unsettled. And I don't know whether it was just it's the first time he'd really been taken on in a big handicap like that. Well, it wasn't a big handicap, but in a handicap like that. And it kind of worried him. So we've done plenty of work with him at home. I mean, lots of work. And our gallops are riding very deep just now. So he really is having to work hard. But I think he'll be in the right place by next week. So let's hope he is, because it would be just nice to get him back on track and get back into that dream. We all have to have dreams, and our dream definitely is the Gold Cup.
Yes, indeed. You could well have 2 dreams coming your way then after Saturday, because Corach's got a massive chance. Lucinda, we're aware that you're just about to try and go through the card at Kelso, so we shall let you go. Many thanks for coming on. All the best on Saturday, and with Ahoy and the rest of the team for the rest of the year. Hopefully we'll have you on before the Cheltenham Festival, maybe again, because you're becoming a friend of the show. And listen, Lucinda, when you're going down to check the ground tomorrow at Newbury, if people start honking their horns at you or shouting on the sidewalk, you've just outed yourself. You, Skoo, and the 3 dogs in the camper van.
I know. It's a good thing it's not branded. No one knows what it looks like.
All right, great stuff. Lucinda Russell. I think all of you will be cheering on Corach one way or another on Saturday. Well, what a treat that was for you then. All the hottest news, early days on Corach Ramblers' chances and all of our stable stars. Great to have Lucinda on, real friend of the show. All right, good stuff. If you enjoyed it, let us know below. But, of course, a reminder that the Members Club offer remains out there for you. Stay ahead of the field. Only £10 per month for your first 3 months. Just use that link in the video description. You can find out more. Look, there they are. All the big names, of course. Breaking news, exclusive, big interviews. Get a weekender with that as well, won't you?
Yep, certainly do.
See, this is a place to advertise, Tom, all right? Your paymasters will be over the moon, mate, if we have any, of course. He's the Lord of the Manor there. Right, all right, OK. Shall we go to Friday's races for you? We've got 2 graded races, Pat, and the Berkshire Novice Chase. We always see some good ones coming out in this. Henderson like to have a go at it. Nichols in particular, and we might have a hot pot.
Yeah, and that horse is Stage Star, who was very impressive, I felt, when he won on his chasing debut. He beat West Cork by a long way. And John Bond beat West Cork by a couple of lengths more. So you could make comparisons, Stage Star, John Bond, perhaps. And since the final decks came out, we were even Stage Star to when we resumed prices. But he's been well back. He's now a strong odds-on favourite. And, the October, November, December version of Stage Star is a lot better than the March, April version, that's for sure. So it all points to a big run from him on Friday. And, of course, Beauport, I thought he was impressive. I thought the Connections did well to take his chances last time out. He won well. But both Beauport and Sebastopol they've got £5 penalties for their wins. So Stage Star receiving weight from Beauport, that's going to be tough for Beauport. I suppose Campron is the interesting runner, but he didn't get as far as the first fence on his chase debut. So he's bits to prove. I think it all just points to Stage Star jumping well, travelling well, and impressing once again. And just throwing it open to see how long he's going to go throughout the season. Unbeaten.
All right, okay. Stage Star. A lot of people got lit up by that Warwickshire chase debut. He's been a bit harsh there, isn't he? I mean, I know he fell in a hole after the Challow hurdle, but, he looked all right up until that point, didn't he?
Yeah, I think it might have been problems with his wind. I think he's pulled up on them 2 starts after...
This is his second wind off his back off now,
yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah. So he's had his issues. He was very impressive. Would I be wanting to back him at odds on with the issues that he's had? It's not really for me. I'm going to take a chance in this race.
You love taking one, Tommy.
The outsider of the field, which is Wonderwall.
Do you know what? He's a really interesting horse this season. I thought they might give him a spin over hurdles first. They're not hanging around with him, are they?
No. I mean, he does look a chaser.
And he's a 6-year-old. You don't want to hang around with 6-year-olds.
No.
I think it's the right decision. I'm really looking forward to seeing him.
If your horse is a chaser, get them over fences. That's the way that I look at it. But,
what is he here then?
Is
it lack of opportunities and they don't want to go into handicap maybe and things like that?
Possibly. I think they think he's a pretty good horse. And I know he's got a bit to find on ratings, but he was a good hurdle last year. I know he fell at Huntingdon, I think, in a listed race won by LS Bell. I think he fell at the last, but he was still in with a chance there, whether he'd have won or not. But that form's decent. I mean, it's obviously awful what happened to LS Bell at Aintree after, but she was a very good horse. I think the form, decent. The stable have always been very, very keen on him. He gave it a glorious write-up I remember in the Weekender stable too last year. So they think he's really exciting. I just think there's a few ifs and buts about Stage Star. I wouldn't want to be getting involved at odds on, and I'm not suggesting you go mad by any stretch of the imagination on Wonderwall, but for small stakes, I think he's a big price.
I mean, we've got the 5 runners jocked up here. We're going to get to the long distance hurdle as well. It looks like a sunny day. Oh, you know where I'm going with this, Tom, don't you? It's like it's not a lot of rain coming into Newbury, isn't it? We haven't got to Newcastle yet, but they're already watering.
Yeah, it's a weird time we're living in, I think, particularly for jump racing.
It's just down to this drought, isn't it? You know what it's like.
It's very hard. I don't know what the answer is, really.
In the Weekender, Alan King, obviously your columnist, came up with a very good line. He actually fought back a little bit, didn't he, without being too aggressive. And he reminded us that in 1976, which of course in the summer, guys, was what we were all referencing. I was born that year, of course. It wasn't until they lifted me out like the Lion King that it began to rain. But it was a very, very dry year. And they didn't race in Cheltenham, King, he told us, till January, of course. So, I don't know, are we going to be impatient?
We are. Last week, it wasn't great for the sport. I mean, we had a great opportunity with no football on to kind of really sell it. It's unfortunate what happened. I think last week, I was one of the ones who was thinking this is a disgrace. But at the end of the day, I don't want to see Constitution Hill running in a race in November and it potentially hindering us or spoiling our chances of seeing him v Honeysuckle in March. That's the race I want to see.
Yeah, fair enough.
There are other horses. He wasn't the only horse that got pulled. We have, as you said, we've had a very, very dry summer. I think we've just got to accept that until we get rain, there's no point moaning about it. Like, there's plenty of decent horses running. We're seeing things. Constitution Hill's back this weekend. Yeah,
I think, Tom, from my point of view, and it's important, Pat, here that we have our say on this, I think, is that what has been a trend that has been growing in the last recent seasons with jump racing was done, I mean, it was literally petrol on a fire, wasn't it, because of what happened in the summer.
Yeah.
So whether there's going to be a backlog of horses running in January and all that stuff, I don't know. The reason why I'm referencing it, guys, for this race as well, is because Beauport Pat would surely be coming in for a lot of love. I know he's got to give him the penalty, but he's actually, him and Campron, who looked like a bit of a lunatic at Exeter when switched to fences on his chasing debut recently, they're both rated considerably higher than Stage Star, despite that fella having won a Challow. But with the ground being quick, do you think Beauport will be coming in for that support as second fav?
Possibly so, yeah. But this is where we are really, David, with all anti-post races, not just the long term, but even when we price races up at the 5-day decks, you're looking at it thinking, well, it's not going to be heavy anymore. So you're tending to lean towards the better ground horses and keep them on your side. And then if it rains, so be it. But the days on us pricing a Bristol de Mai let's say at Haydock on a Monday saying, right, we'll get with this because we know the ground's going to be heavy. Those days are gone, I think. You'll be looking at it thinking, well, it won't be that bad anymore. So the mudlarks are going to be bigger prices from here on in, Anti-Post.
And of course, we were all thinking Haydock was going to be Haydock heavy, as G-Rod kept saying last week. And of course, it turns out they're not always right, these forecasts. So, look, fingers crossed it's just safe ground and everyone wants to take part this weekend. Shall we go to the 305? Because it is the very exciting and well-established long-distance hurdle, the Grade 2. 6 runners at the start of the week. We thought this might cut up, Pat Cooney. Thankfully, they all stood their ground.
Yes, so far so good. Although Dashel Drasher, he's probably better on lots more testing ground, and certainly at Ascot, isn't he? So maybe his participation might be a slight question mark. It's an interesting market, this. As you touched on, there was only 6 in the race at the 5-day stage. When we did get the final decks through, we kept with Proshima as our favourite, but he's now been overtaken by Champ, who is now a solid favourite in the race. Been good support for him. And Champ, he's not a horse I've ever really warmed to for my sins, but he has had 10 wins from 19 races, and he has got good solid lines of form. But a few of them, they've beaten each other, really. Paisley Park's beaten him in the past before. Proshima won well at our Charlie Hall meeting at Wetherby, I felt. The second that day was Thomas Darby, who's better off at the weights. But Proshima won by a long-looking margin that day. And I think the Skeltons coming to Newbury on this day wasn't part of their original plan. So I don't know if the horse must be sending out the right sort of signals for them to say, well, we're going to go for this one as well. So I've never really been a Champ fan. So I'm going to go with Proshima from what I saw at Wetherby.
It was such a huge step up from the horse, wasn't it, at Wetherby? But visually and on figures, he probably, with that run under his belt, you ought to be favourite.
Yeah, I mean, it was visually impressive. He sprinted away from them. He's always been a really strong traveller. I'm not sure about that race. There was a few in there that were prepping for other targets. Sporting John fell flat.
Thomas
Darby ran a decent race, but I don't know, there's something a bit... I can't trust that form, and I'm happy to take him on here.
Are you a Champ fan?
I am a Champ fan.
Right, I didn't think you were going to say that, Thomas. So
yeah, I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Champ.
Were you with him in that RSA?
I was.
Yeah. Which is when you're always going to think he's one of my favourite of all time.
Yeah.
And if you're on Manila Indo or Allaho, you're thinking,
exactly.
Oh, Champ.
But look, he's been a very good horse. He's 10 now. He's a bit older than you kind of think, Champ. He missed a couple of years early on. He was a late bloomer. But
yes, last 10-year-old to win this in the last 10 years? Oh, that's a curveball at you. It was in these colours. You know what I mean, Harry.
Oh, really, yeah.
So, but it does tend to go. He was favourite that year, though, so I suppose the fancied horses can do it. And I'm sure, I mean, Big Bucks won it as a 9-year-old, Celestial Halio and things like that. But usually it does go. Thomas Darby was 8 when he won it last year. Paisley Park was 7 when he won it in 2019. Do you know what? I'm going to give Proshima a chance to prove that he's in a really good place here, I think.
I can't. It's a tricky race because you can't. If you take that, he was brilliant at Wetherby. It's just whether you trust that, and I'm just not quite sure. He's done this kind of thing before, Proshima. He doesn't. He doesn't always hold his form, but he could be improving.
Is this race a bit of a statement about the Stayers Hurdle, where it's ripe for new blood, isn't it? This division.
Yeah. And I wouldn't put you off backing Proshima for the Stayers Hurdle, for example, because he was that good. He could do that again this time, and then all of a sudden, it's an open market.
It's just what you want is something classy from a big stable, isn't it? To come and mop it all up like we saw with Thistlecrack that year, like Big Bucks used to do.
Yeah.
The Stayers Hurdle, I think, needs some injection into it. All right.
Proshima's got a similar profile to Thistlecrack. I mean, he came from... I think he was a 7-year-old when he won this race. He's improving, but... I don't know. I'd need to see him do it again.
I'd be surprised. Thomas Darby really looked like he was on a going day, and then he just needed it, I think. And this is his FA Cup final. But the way Proshima went away from him, another flat track, ground is in his favour. I'd be surprised if he doesn't go and give Champ a real race. That's something to savour then on Friday at 3:05. OK, time for Saturday to sizzle. And let's go up to the Toon, shall we, for the biggest jumps race of their season. They've got the Rehearsal chase there as well. It's a great day up there, Pat, of course. And they're watering already. And maybe, just maybe, we might see a monster coming over the hill in the Fighting Fifth.
Yeah, it seems that way, doesn't it, Constitution Hill? And since Nicky Henderson declared him for the race, he has been all the rage, really. Now, when you think he was, 3-1 on to beat Goshen and company at Ascot on Saturday, and we all kind of thought he would, he's going to be round about 3-1 on to beat Epatante and Not So Sleepy. And, of course, Epatante continues to get this magical £7 mare's allowance. So I think he was a better bet at Ascot on 3s on than he's going to be at 3s on at Newcastle. But we hope, don't we? We hope he's Pegasus, and then we hope he wins very, very well. As for Epatante, well, if she runs an honourable second, I'm sure connections are thinking about stepping her up in trip. So it all points to Constitution Hill winning in good style. But let's hope he runs, and they're desperate to run him. So I would imagine he'll win. I can't see it being anything other than a straightforward performance based on his apparent wonderful work at the moment.
We were talking when I bumped into you in the office beforehand, and you said, well, as odds on shot goes, I don't like to put them in, but people will just be once again chucking him into the multiples and expecting to see what we saw when he signed off in the Supreme Novice Hurdle, beating, rightful Arkle favourite John Bond. We know that is sizzling form. He's unexposed still. He could be genuinely, there is talk about him being the best hurdler of all time. Certainly the quickest hurdler around Cheltenham of all time. He already is over 2 miles. So, how much have you got the Applautard factor in the back of your mind, or is that just something to just throw away now?
Horses sometimes are capable of extraordinary things, and they don't always replicate that. What I don't think is going to happen this season is Constitution Hill isn't going to win all of his races by 22 lengths, because it's not, unless he is an absolute freak of nature, it's just not sustainable to keep doing that. However, as we were chatting before, I do think it's not really my kind of thing getting involved in odds on shots, but as far as 2 to 5, 1 to 3 shots go, I think he's rock solid. He should be good enough.
He beats Epatante, who of course it's her race, isn't it? And
yeah.
It was due to be her race. At Ascot had what Nicky had done.
Epatante's a very good horse in
very good horse, and
right.
seemingly great in a great place again, isn't she?
Yeah,
back sorted
she's
out.
Getting the mare's allowance. But
Not So Sleepy should at least ensure, hopefully, it's not a cat and mouse silly race to watch.
Yeah, I think there'll be. I think everything points to Constitution Hill probably winning quite well.
Distances will be involved and all that sort of stuff.
Maybe. I'd be just urging on the side of caution with that, because you're not going to get the value because he's done it, and everyone naturally you think, he's going to just absolutely demolish everything, when maybe this is the first race of the season. He's not going to be absolutely...
So sit back, watch the glory that should be the Constitution, and we'll see about the rest of the season from then on.
Yeah, I think I'd be a little bit concerned as well. I watched the Supreme Bat the other day after he got pulled out, and he does look like he's a horse that you wouldn't want to be racing on quick ground.
Well, they straight away said no entry, and Punchestown was the one, but again, they quickly got rid of that idea.
But he should win this, shouldn't he? I mean, it's exciting to see him out. People up in Newcastle are going to get right. I was up at Newcastle last year, and it was the worst weather that I've ever been to a race course. You couldn't see anything.
I remember it very well. I remember Montmorel sinking in that weather.
Yeah,
as well.
Hopefully they'll get their money's worth this time. I mean, let's just fingers crossed that he takes his chance, because it'll be good to see him. And it's good to see him against a good horse. You are going to find out if he is the real deal, at least, because Epatante is remarkably consistent. She's going to travel through a race. She'll like the ground. She's going to set a decent challenge for him. And if he goes and wins going away by multiple lengths, then we really do have a special one on our hands, I think.
Fingers crossed then for the fighting fifth at Newcastle showpiece on Saturday. Right, I said that was Epatante's race of the past. She's also won the Gerry Feilden, Pat Cooney, which is our next preview, back down at Newbury on Saturday.
Yeah, and it's a race where Nicky Henderson seems to hold the clues in the race. He's got the top two in the handicap. First Street, who was second in the county hurdle to Stateman. Now, that looks good form now, doesn't it? And the win machine is called Theatre Glory. And now the jockey bookings are interesting. Obviously, Nico's up at Newcastle. James Bowen on First Street. And Nathan Brennan claiming 7 is Theatre Glory. But don't let that put you off, because Nathan has actually won on this horse before. So they're classy horses with good, solid form to the name. But it's a tricky old race. They're there at the top of the handicap for a reason. I quite like the Skelton's horse here, Pikar, Pikar. I think he was sort of brought along slowly for the Skeltons last year. There were some promising runs, and then he got his act together and won well on his seasonal reappearance. So he has that fitness advantage, which the Henderson horses haven't run for 200 odd days. So I'm looking at the bottom of the handicap and working my way up, and I've stopped off at number 5 on the card, P-Car. But it's a tricky old race, this one.
It's my lucky number 5, if you have any of those sort of things, but it's never lucky when you follow me in with a selection. And I thought I found one in here, and it was indeed Picar. Pat Cooney and me agreeing on this. The race he won at Chepstow, he finally showed what he was all about there. It's worked out well, hasn't it? Time for a Tune was there. Master Chewy would have won at Ascot, or don't, last Friday when he fell at the last. And they highly tried him as a 4-year-old and as, late 5-year-old. I think this guy getting all the weight, this is his big chance to shine. I think Dan Skelton's looking for another big weekend here, and he would be one of my big hopes of the weekend, I think.
He's a genius with these kind of races, Skelton, isn't he? I mean...
Made his name in these, didn't he? Do you remember the Ascot Christmas hurdle?
Yeah.
I remember what the name was. It was terrible weather. Began with a W. You'll be screaming at the telly now telling me, but that was where he really launched himself. Oh, it's going to kill me, that is, what the horse was called. But you're right. He started off looking at these 2-mile hurdles, the value of them, and targeting horses at them. I think he's done it again.
Yeah, I think First Street's a really good bet here. That form of the county hurdle is obviously standing out like it's brilliant. He's only beaten a length by State Man. Probably could have been further. I mean, State Man had all sorts in hand that day. But I think this is a very, very good horse. And Henderson has ran classy horses in this race in the past. We've mentioned Epatante. She won this race for him. I think Lammy Surge won it a few years back as well. He's got a very good record in the race. He's pinpointed this in a stable 2 that he did with us. This was the race that he was always aiming at. I was interested in him for the Greatwood originally, but they're coming here. I
just wonder whether he wins enough as he should. He wears a hood, doesn't he, as well? There's something about him that I don't like. You're great mates with Kills, of course. You were even out having a little sherbet with him last night, we can reveal as well. And he has put this up in the weekend, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. And yeah, I backed it as well. It was, pleasing to see Jello come out for that purpose. And I thought his stablemate was probably the big danger. Like Pat said, I think Nathan Brennan's a very good jockey for his 7. But yeah, I just think this is a graded horse. They're giving him one last blast in a handicap, picking up some prize money, and then we'll see what he's really made of later in the year. But I think he'll be running in the likes of maybe a Christmas hurdle or some of these graded races over.
There's another
2
interesting
miles.
one in there. She was supposed to run at Kempton during the week before the weather change. It was Grivitana, who is getting bundles of weight from everything, and Harry Cobden's on it. Wouldn't be surprised. She might just want a little bit of a stiffer test, and this is probably plan B this week. But again, she's an interesting one as well. But Kills and Parky, it's a 2-way split because me and Pat think that will get turned over. Right, let's go to what is now called the Coral Gold Cup. It is now remaining one of the best betting races of any Saturday you'll find anywhere, Pat Cooney. 305.
It certainly is, and as things stand at the moment, we're 6-1 each of 3, so 6-6-6. So a devil of a race to try and solve, I think. I don't even know what was going to go a favourite for this. Never mind what will win it, and I keep changing my mind. I like the look of Anti-Post. We've laid Oscar Elite, for example. I think that's an interesting horse. His form figures look a bit miserable, don't they? 4-5-3 P5. But there's some pretty good runs in there, and an interesting jockey book, and of course Harry Cobden for the Tizard team. So he's been the anti-post mover, and he was 3rd to Correct Rambler at Cheltenham, ran ever so well. You've got to keep Correct Rambler in your short list, undeniably. A remastered. A lot of people thought he would have won the race last year when he was in the lead 4 out and he came down. And he's actually lower in the handicap this time around, so he's going to have his backers. 3 under through 5. He's got that old stat, really, the second season novice, and he ran okay at Weatherby on his reappearance, and so on and so on. I keep, though, coming back to Bustleton of Joseph O'Brien. The stats gurus in the office, they've been, bending my ear saying a 5-year-old's never won this race. But he's a 5-year-old that's had 12 races over fences. That's some task, isn't it? And he won well at Listowel, and he's got good form. It's Joseph O'Brien training him. And he won well last time out. Fortuitous winner, maybe. Hewitt just came down when he was going slightly better. Even if he'd been second to Hewitt that day, that form would have looked okay to me. So I'm going to go for a history-breaking 5-year-old, albeit a vastly experienced 5-year-old, in Bustleton.
Yeah, he's had 12 races over fences. There's a lot of some of the other, older horses ahead of him. What I think if you're with Bustleton, forget the 5-year-old thing. He's a bit of a freak, actually. I can see why your statisticians were saying that, though. How much of tactics is going to come into this? Because Saturday after Saturday, we see front runners absolutely dominating these long distance chases, and he would probably be one of them here.
Yeah, you would expect there to be plenty of pace on in the Coral Gold Cup. But if he was to get an easy lead, he'd be very, very dangerous. I think he is. He looks like he could be a really well handicapped horse. He's obviously improving. I'm very, very keen on Oscar Elite.
I was about to say, when Pat Cooney said we've laid him anti-post, that was definitely some of your shekels.
Yeah, I have had a little bit on anti-post.
You and the anti-post man, that is Wilders.
And I really like his chances here. He's a very classy horse. I think people forget that he finished second in an Albert Bartlett a couple of years ago.
You're going on Saturday, aren't you? This is the reason, isn't it?
Yeah, I am keen on the Oscar Elite, I have to say. Anyway, that Ultimate looks really hot form. I mean, the National
Winners' He went through the car park throughout that as well, didn't he? He was widest of all. He's £6
swung
better
on the bridle.
Yeah, he did. And Cobden was on that day, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He's £6 better off with Corrick Rambler.
Yeah.
Probably get first run on him, and he did travel well for a long way.
And he bled after the race.
Did he?
He was found to have bled. Now, whether that made a difference, he actually finished his race off pretty strongly.
Yeah. He looked like it was going to be a classic, Harry, you've gone too soon, you've gone too wide. And
he's had a few problems. I mean, he's had a wind up over the summer. I think that's certainly going to help.
The return in the Proshima and Thomas Derby race was sound.
And again, he travelled so strongly. We were talking about Proshima and how well he travelled. Well, if you watch the race back, Oscar Elite travels so sweetly too. He goes past 300 through 5, and then he just blows up.
Yeah.
You'd hope that it's because he needed the run and not anything to do with that wind issue.
There's a significant swing at the weights between those two as well, isn't there?
Massive swing at the weights. I mean, if you look...
listen to Tom giving the case of this.
I was chatting to Keels, I said he quite likes 300 through 5. He also likes Lost in Translation, which is interesting. However, I can't see how anyone could fancy 300 through 5 and not fancy Oscar Elite.
Right, you're talking to the man that does. I fancy 300 through 5. He's got the cheap pieces on. He went for the gallop. He's not a hurdler anymore. And despite his head carriage, this is exactly the kind of horse that wins this race. He'll be up there. They're putting the cheap piece on for the first time. This is it. But I absolutely agree. Watch back in your members club. 3 to 2 out. Oscar Elite's going to blow him away. If
you look back at his Cheltenham, they raced against each other, these two, at Cheltenham at the November meeting last year. Now, I know it's a long time. It was early. They've both improved horses since then. Oscar Elite fell.
When looking a likely winner, yeah.
And he's getting £12 from him this time.
I'm not going to convince you, am I? You are not for changing your mind.
I'm not. He's going to love the ground. He's a second-season novice.
Of course, the Tizzards have won this.
The Tizzards have won this.
With that ridiculous horse that was 12 or whatever it was. What was the... Oh, hang on, I'll pull it up in a minute.
Sizing Tennessee.
Sizing Tennessee was 10.
Native River, obviously, they won with him.
Yeah.
Fiddler on the Roof ran a stormer last year.
Yes, second, wasn't he?
And as I said, Keeley made a good case for Lost in Translation.
Oh, man.
Hit a big price. My worry with him is this the race that he's been entered at a lot of places, and whether he's obviously fit because he's been running in them. But
if Lost in Translation wins this, I'll be so confused. It'll be like I'm speaking Chinese.
Keeley makes a good
cannot
case for him. I can't have him, but I am laser focused on Oscar Elite.
And Kills has a habit of knowing when these projects might be about to pay off. Lemilos is another one as well. We could keep going, but it's Oscar Elite.
Yeah, I mean, Lemilos was impressive. Is he going to like this ground?
And it's just whether he can do it. He might be best fresh. He's got the penalty, of course, but Oscar Elite, he's got to overcome a big stat in that he's never won over fences, so he'll be breaking his maiden on the biggest of stages.
True, but that's why he's rated 139. He's going to win races over fences, and he's been. I think he's so well handicapped here.
You're sensing that Parky's rather keen on this, aren't you? Every time I give him something, it comes straight back at me, which I'm not used to on this show, I have to say. But we love that infectious enthusiasm, Pat, don't we? Have we got it coming up in our final race then? The Rehearsal Chase, another very well-established long-distance handicap.
Well, yeah, and what a difference a week makes, because a week ago we were all saying, oh, Venetia Williams horses, I don't really know. They haven't really got going yet. And she's firing winner after winner. And L'Homme Presse, he's going here at top weight, 12 stone. And I suppose he's going to be pretty tough to beat, really. Granted, the ground is going to be suitable for him. But, as good as he is, all his rivals are also still in the handicap. So it's not going to be a straightforward task for him on his seasonal reappearance. Again, you've got nothing to worry about with the stable form. That issue's come and gone. I like Into Overdrive right at the bottom there, getting almost 2 stone from Venetia's horse. And Into Overdrive, he won at our Charlie Hall meeting at Wetherby on his reappearance. And that's now 4 wins in a row this fella's had. And I spoke to connections after that race, and they thought this was the race that would set up well for him. I don't think they thought they would be getting into the race with 10 stone 2, which is what they've got. He won in good style at Wetherby. He's only gone up £6 for that. Yes, he's taken on better horses this time around, but he's a good progressive profile. Getting 2 stone, and if it's testing ground there, and sometimes it can be, then that could be vital. But L'Homme Presse, he's going to be a well-back favourite for this, because punters won't look any further than the class horse of the race, but he won't be a bargain in the betting, I wouldn't have thought. But it'll be interesting to see how he goes.
This is a fascinating long distance handicap. Thanks, Pat. Because couldn't we be in the most ridiculous situation of like Groundhog Day, where Constitution doesn't turn up because of the ground, and L'Homme Presse follows him? They're going to be doing it all the way throughout the season, aren't they? Like, just putting it out there, people. I think if L'Homme Presse turns up, I think he'll do what she's so good at this. And thankfully, she did something which a lot of trainers, bar Paul Nicholls, weren't doing last season, and ran Royal Pagaille in that handicap. Good weights, are carried by classy horses in these long-staying handicaps. I think he'll do it. Into Overdrive is very interesting. I love I Right, who doesn't, but he's £7 higher this year. And Good Boy Bobby, who we beat last year, he's got Class 2 animals up against him. Sure, he'll be there 2 out. Dingo Dollar, could see him come back, but he'll be off the bridle probably after 4 fences. Happy Go Lucky is interesting, isn't he?
Interesting. It's just the layoff. I mean, that's he's very interested on his old form.
And he's another one that could yet defect, by the way, guys. He's ready to run, isn't he?
Yeah, he is interesting. We've just not seen him for a while. It's tricky to kind of... I always like to see them... I'm not going to back a horse off such a long way. I think L'Homme Presse... Were you
with him last season as a novice?
Yeah. I thought he was...
He's your sort also in.
He was a brilliant novice. I think he's banging the Gold Cup picture, and if he is going to be a Gold Cup horse, he has to be...
164 will be fine for him.
I like... It's bold of connections to run these horses in handicaps, and we should see more of it, because they make for really interesting races.
Yeah.
It really puts in... You'll know where you stand with him, because you've got the likes of I Right, again, very consistent. Into Overdrive is an improving horse, getting all that weight. If L'Homme Presse does go on and beat them well, then he really is a Gold Cup contender, particularly after the A Plus Tard.
And Venetia's had her winners, thankfully.
Yeah, she has.
Since everyone was worried about that last weekend, but she's 4 in the last week of 1 for her.
He's a class act, though, isn't he?
Yes. And this is going to be fascinating, because you've got the Into Overdrive, who probably we don't know how good he is yet. 1 over 2-3, as Pat said at Wetherby, beating a decent horse in Dublin for that day, and yet has won over this distance, and he's getting all that weight. So this is what we want to see, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that Brown Advisory, I know Hoy Senor wasn't brilliant when we saw him at the Charlie Hall, but it'll turn out to be a decent race, and he won so impressively. The way that he kind of kicked on after he got 1 tap from Charlie Deutsch on the way up the hill, and then he kicked on again. Providing he's relatively fit, I think he'll be too good for these.
Good to go.
I like backing. I don't have a problem backing classy horses with big weights. I think.
And rather
class
than
usually comes to the fore.
Rather than the 7-4 honour, well, if it would have been last week, we're going to get a price here, aren't we? So.
Yeah. I mean, whether I'll be getting... I'll be interested to see what price he goes off.
Well, whether you're still standing after the Cheltenham Gold Cup or not, we'll find out. I mean, I fear for your sanity, man, if Oscar Elite isn't going.
But yeah, I don't know if I'll be... We'll see. If
it's a great card at Newcastle. 2-10 the fight in 5th, and then they end on this absolutely brilliant handicap. So let's hope everyone turns up, and let's hope you bang in some winners after our big race previews you've just had. Right. Let's get the Saturday naps underway for you. Then, have been going quite well for the panel in the last couple of weeks, so I'm delighted to say. So pressure's on you, Tom Part. I think we know where you're going to go. But I'll sneak in first at Newbury, if you don't mind, in the 2:30. I think Picard will pick this up for the Skeltons. He's got definitely a 2-mile hurdle going in place. I think he will get the weight from First Street and do the job. Go on, just get it out of the way.
Yeah, no surprises. Oscar Elite in the 305 at Newbury, as mentioned earlier. I just think he's supremely well handicapped, and I'd be disappointed if I'm not collecting.
Well, I've had a little bit on him as well as 3 under 3.5, Tom, so I hope you are. Pat Cooney, where are we going?
Yeah, I'm going to keep the powder dry to the last race, the 340 at Newbury on Saturday. Amarillo Sky won well for the Tizzards. Could be a big day for them, couldn't it? Very impressive at Cheltenham. Only went up £4 for the win in that handicap. I always think when you win at the Cheltenham, you should be going up more than £4 for your win. But he looked pretty good, jumped like a little bunny rabbit, so he'll win the last for me at Newbury.
Lovely. All right, then. A Newbury treble for you all, then. They're our main hopes this weekend. Well, sadly, that's all we've got time for on this Thursday. What a shout for you. Plenty of time then to digest the action. Those 2 Friday treats for you as well. Cheers for coming down, Parky.
Loved it.
Yeah, well, listen, we need to see more of you, mate, through the winter. The big jump-off obviously absolutely flew. Congratulations again for that. And, Horsey, you're looking forward to away from the action?
What, for the season?
Yeah.
Well, you put me on the spot there. I think Galore, I'm looking forward to Galore. I thought he did everything wrong in the Paddy Power and still won. I mean, he probably have another go in a handicap, but I think he might step up to graded company at some point. But Hitman, yeah, I think he's got a real shout in the King George.
I love it. You're talking through your pocket there, Tom. That's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. All right, well, let's hope it's a festive treat for Parky. And all right, Pat Cooney, lovely to have you. Where are you this weekend?
I'm going to go to Newbury on Friday and Saturday, so I look forward to seeing everyone there.
So, if you're in Newbury, go and see either of these great men. Say hello. They're very hospitable chaps, and Parky will buy you a drink if Oscar Elite goes and takes the big one out. Good luck with the train strikes this weekend, guys. Not good for either Newcastle or Newbury. Good luck. Let's hope we get some rain as well and everything turns up. Don't forget to gamble responsibly. That's what it's all about. Don't forget to download our new app as well, which has got a lot better and so much more information on this. You can do that on the Google Play Store, the App Store itself, all the big names on there, daily content coming your way, and we're going to be building on that big time in 2023. So from myself, Dave Orton, all the sport out there, there's a certain World Cup as well, isn't there? Good luck England against the USA on Friday. Enjoy it.